Hey, everybody, and welcome to this episode of The Blind Ambition with Jack Kelly. It's your friend Rick from Blind, and today I'm going to introduce you all to Arvind Jain. Arvind is the founder and CEO of Glean. He founded Glean to make it easy for people to find the information they need to be more productive and happier at work. Before Glean, Arvind co founded Rubrik, one of the fastest growing companies in cloud data management, and served as a distinguished engineer at Google, where he spent over a decade leading various teams in search, maps, and YouTube. For those of you that don't know, Glean is an AI platform for enterprise search and knowledge discovery. It uses generative AI to learn your company's knowledge base and develop a deep understanding of the context, behavior, and relationships with coworkers that are specifically tuned to your workplace. Thanks for coming on the show, Arvind.
Thank you for having me.
I mean, hopefully I did your background. It's been a great, capped off by 10 years at Google as a distinguished engineer, which is quite of an amazing accomplishment. But can you walk us through your career just so that we're all on the same page there?
Yeah. So right now, I'm the founder and CEO of Glean. Glean is the company that we started about 5 years back, early 2019. And as you mentioned, think of it like Google or ChatGPT, but inside your company. Before starting Glean, I was doing another startup which we had started in 2014 called Rubrik. Rubrik is also an enterprise software company. And before that, I was at Google for over a decade, starting with when it was a privately held company, and I worked on search for a long time as part of that job at Google. And before that, before Google, I was actually part of a couple other startups as a founding team member and early employee at Riverbed Technology and Akamai. Both of these are also large public companies now, and that's where it is. So I started my journey about 25 years ago.
That's certainly a great run. In what made you decide after working at some of these, Google, obviously very large organization, to put together Glean?
Yeah, I mean, like the motivation for Glean came to me when I was doing my previous startup, Rubrik. We were actually quite fortunate at Rubrik to find the right problem, the right business, that allowed us to actually quickly scale our company. And within 4 years, we were more than 1,000 people in the company. But when we, with that growth, we also experienced, difficulties. Like, we, 4 years in, we were feeling like, we're not able to move as fast. People are not as productive as they used to be. And we would ask them, we would actually do a pulse survey every 6 months, and try to learn from people, what's in their way of doing great work. And the top complaint that we would actually get in our pulse surveys from people was, employees saying that I don't feel enabled. I don't know actually where to go and, look for things, find the information that I need to do my job. I also don't know who to go and ask for help when I need help. And this was the largest complaint that we saw. And it was not surprising because, I was feeling the same way, as one of the founders of the company. Whenever I needed something, it was like a big, big issue. I didn't know where to go and, start. Luckily for me, I had an assistant who would actually do the work for me. But it was a problem that which was, I think, every company faces. We were facing it, uh, maybe in an even bigger way, because we were built in this modern SaaS era, and our company knowledge was spread across hundreds of different systems, and it was really hard to find out what information lives where. So there was a problem at hand. I'm a search engineer by training. So first I said, oh, you know what, if it's hard to find things, go and buy a search engine, put it inside your company. That's going to help make it easy. And I realized, in that exercise that there was no product in the market that were actually making it easy for employees to find information. There's no search engine that we could buy for our employees. So that's sort of what led to the creation of Glean.
It makes a lot of sense because, let's say from my perspective, run a small compared to your shop, and it's always a hassle when you're trying to find documents. In my instance, it's like recruiting. So where's the placement agreement for this? Where's the contract for that? And then who has it? Who did it? And it takes so much time to track it down, and it's so frustrating. So what you're doing is making it easier for companies to pull it all in one place together, so you don't have that aggravation. Like, where's this document? Where's that document? Is that kind of that?
Exactly. Yeah.
And then how does it play out? Is it a combination of both downloading information into Glean, but then also tapping into kind of, the internet like ChatGPT and the others to pull in things pull in data from everywhere? Is that happens too?
Yeah. So primarily for Glean, our value is in helping you sort out like data that lives within your company. So that's the first thing we would do. Like, if you come and ask a question, we will look for, is there, some document or, some piece of knowledge within your company that can actually answer your question. And if so, we'll actually present that back to you. But sometimes, your questions are general, like you're not looking for, like the answer actually is on the internet, not really inside your company. So we'll actually help pull that information too.
And that makes a lot of sense to me, right? Because I find that if, based on my limited knowledge of AI, but if you train your like large language model or your AI on kind of a walled garden or a specific set of data, it can likely be more accurate, right? Are you seeing kind of the benefits of that? Or, is it some kind of other benefit entirely in terms of your technology and your underlying search?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. AI models are somewhat like, unpredictable, and sometimes they can make a mistake too, as you've seen. Like, you can go in, like people talk about hallucinations all the time. And so there are techniques. So one of those techniques is exactly what you said. That is, you can actually ground your AI model to a specific set of knowledge. So basically, what you're telling the AI model is that don't work on like all of the world's information, work on only these, small set of documents for me. So if I come and ask a question, read only these documents and try to see if you can extract an answer from it. Otherwise, just tell me that you don't have the answer. So there are ways to sort of, prompt and these models to behave in this way. And that's exactly what we do at Glean, is that whenever a user comes and asks a question, first, we will use our core search technology to actually assemble what we think are the most relevant documents, which are fresh and up to date, and I potentially can answer this question. So we don't know the answer yet, but we're sort of assembling a set of documents that we think contain the answer, and then we'll actually have the AI work on only that set of documents, and 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 have AI sort of generate the answer using that knowledge. So that's sort of how you do it, and that allows you to actually make the AI technology more accurate, robust, and hopefully, like, not make things up. But I think, like, even after you do that, there can always be issues. So the other thing that we do with Glean is that any line of text that AI generates, we always fact check it with our own internal company knowledge. And so that sort of is a way to sort of ultimately deliver an experience, that people can feel confident in.
And how is the setup? Is that, and you may have mentioned, I'm sorry if I missed it. Do you offer it as a SaaS kind of product, and then you offer like a platform? Because I'm just trying to figure out, so that if, let's say, you're a small mid-sized company, to take it as an example, then you would upload all sorts of healthcare documents and insurance documents and this documents, your rent documents, and then it'll make it easy to upload it all in there and then continue to do so. Is that?
Yeah. So Glean is a SaaS product, it runs in our cloud. For larger enterprises, we actually offer a version that they can run within their own environments. But for a small, medium-sized business, they don't want that complication. So Glean will run in the cloud. And basically all you do is you come to our product and you will actually tell us that, hey, these are the applications that I use, within my business. This is where my data is stored. And you'll just connect those applications. So you have to just go through like a few web pages, click a few buttons, and that's all you have to do, and you're up and running at that point.
Wow. I mean, how did you kind of stumble upon, what was the insight that led to creating Glean? Like, did you have any kind of did you bring any of your experience from like Google into kind of solving search at the company level?
Yeah, absolutely. So first, I mean, I think like why we started was actually, the company. Did we have any specific insights? Like no, like I think all we had was everybody, like including me myself, suffering from this issue of like could not find anything ever like inside our companies. Like even at Google, when I was at Google, that was actually a big joke inside the company that we were helping everybody in the world find things and find answers to their questions, but we're not helping ourselves internally. Like it was so we couldn't find anything inside the company. And so I think the problem is obvious. I think it was a matter of somebody wanting to solve it, and so we chose to solve it. But then in terms of like how you build a product, it's a hard problem. Like search is very, very hard, because think of it like it's like magic. Like your expectation today with Google is that you can go there and ask any question, and you expect Google to sift through like 10 billion documents on the internet and pick the right answer and give it back to you in like less than 1 second, right? So it's sort of like I feel like it's nothing short of magic. We've sort of gone to like get used to that. So but it's takes a lot of effort. So so for us also, the part of our building this product was building the right team from the beginning. Like I spent over a decade working on search myself, but so has most of our early team. Like it was actually a lot of us came from Google. If you came from other large enterprises, having decades of experience building search products. So that was absolutely something that was important. Like as we got started.
Arvind, if you don't mind to go back a little bit in time, what you said when you started Google, it was still early on. How was it? So how early on? Was it like, how many people were there when you started? If you don't mind me asking, like, what's a distinguished engineer? That sounds really fancy. So how for
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
in the audience who are not familiar with those designations, what does that mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, when I started at Google, it was actually not that small, like it was private, but there were a few hundred engineers in the company, and we already had a great product, the search engine, and I got to work on it. That was really exciting. The like within the company, like the 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 engineering team, like like there was a hierarchy. Like you sort of start, when you come in the company, you start at the at one of the early levels, and then as you sort of make contributions in the company, you climb that ladder, and the becoming a distinguished engineer was basically, was something that like, you do good work, over a period of years, and sort of you get to that level. The like, yeah, I guess in terms of like maybe putting things in context, I think I would say that like, less than 1% of the engineers would actually get to that level in the company.
Now, is it also where, as you're saying here, you're still an individual contributor, so you're going a path instead of like managing a whole team. You have the knowledge to be an awesome software engineer. So like, hey, that's what I do best, so I'm going to do it. And that's a separate track than people who might say, hey, at this point, I'm going to be a manager and manage more people.
That's right. So, and in
Okay.
fact, that was one of the really good things about Google, was they actually created, these two paths. A path, where you can actually keep working on building great technology, but still have large impact. And versus the other path, which is like, you actually start to manage and help other people, build great things. So I think, folks who are like truly great builders, like had that chance to be on the level playing field, along with the management team. And so I certainly chose that path for myself as well.
Rick, tell me if you're thinking this the same way I am. I'm listening to this. I'm thinking you start, and you're so calm about it, right? You're so cavalier about it, Arvind. Like, so you started when it was private before Google went public. So you went for a rocket ship ride. That's insane. Like that's think about it. To be at that place at that time, even though maybe it wasn't the first 5 people, but you were, first, large, beginning cohort. But that's got to be amazing. Like, how was it going there and being at that place at that time? And I don't even want to ask how much money you have through stock options because it's probably out of control. But put that aside. But it had to be crazy, right? To like be there in that environment. Like, what was it like?
It was incredible for
Yeah.
me. Without a doubt, I think I would say it was the best job that I had, at the time. Um, I'll tell you, like, how I felt. Like, Google was this really truly special place, with, amazing talent. When I came in, I had this, I think what you call the imposter syndrome. Like, I just felt that I was out of place. Like, everybody was brilliant, like, like mad scientists, from MIT, uh, and just amazing. And like, I think, like, for me, like the reason I actually went there was because I just felt that I would learn a lot, from people. And so for a while it was like that, like, I was very uncomfortable, like, just trying to sort of, prove my place, in the company. But it was an amazing environment. It was also, very different. Like, so there are two big distinct things, at Google. One, that engineers were the king, at the company, and I'd never seen it before. Like, the true power was held by people who were building great products. They would come up with the great ideas, and the leadership was actually built in the company to assist, that engineering excellence. So that was actually, so as an engineer, you felt really good, really, powerful, and, felt that you had the agency to, to do big things. And second was incredible, like, the innovation, like just the way the company, thought and did things. There was never, um, it was sort of like uncapped, ambition in some sense. For example, one fine day, the company decides that, we're going to actually map the entire world. We're going to send, you know,
Yeah,
you know,
let's just map the world today. Like, yeah. Like, that's what
yeah,
Rick and I say every day, right? Like,
like,
we'll just
have.
map the whole world. Easy to, yeah.
That's right. Yeah, like, like have satellites, and,
Mhm.
take the imagery of the entire world, and then send a fleet of cars everywhere in every single country, and, just gonna map every single inch of the earth. And so, like, a lot of efforts at Google were like that, and they were just incredibly exciting. Like, as an engineer, like, when you sort of like have the management team, with that kind of ambition, like, it allows you to like build really cool technology. So you sort of felt like, that amazing playground, and I absolutely loved it.
So it's wild. So, like, on one level, you're saying, and I really respect the fact that you're very humble in terms of the way you're describing it, very honest, saying that you felt a little bit imposter syndrome because you look around and everybody's a genius, everyone's brilliant. So you have to overcome that. But then also by being, as you're saying, being an engineer and a distinguished engineer, you have that swagger to know that you're, like you said, the king, which is
Yeah.
has to be a good feeling too, knowing that everybody's looking up to you and others like you to make this happen. That has to be pretty awesome feeling, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I loved it. And of course you had to earn it. So, like, when I came in, like, I came in as an engineer with no designation, and you had to sort of grow into it. But yeah, like, the company always made engineers, feel like, they could do great things. So I thank, Google for whatever success I've had in my career.
And then what happened? Then there's a time where you just said, "Hey, you know what? I want to do something of my own and started Rubric? Is that how it
It
worked
was,
out?
it was for me, it was more accidental. Like, I was actually always really happy working at Google. You get to work on, big, great things. So it was actually a friend of mine who wanted to start the company. And, I'd been at Google for over 10 years, and he was able to convince me and to try it out. And I think I was always excited about starting a company, starting from scratch and sort of go through that challenge again. Sometimes at a large company you start to feel like like the challenge is no longer there, in the sense that the company is doing so well and it's going to do well without your project succeeding in some way, because it's like the company is way bigger than you yourself at some point. So that was the exciting part for me, was to like start again and prove that we can build something valuable with no resources, with no the might of the large company behind us. So it was an exciting proposition for me, and I chose to sort of jump in.
All right,
And
Arvind, I gotta ask you this. So I don't mean to be too forward. Rick, I'm not sure if you could appreciate this because you're a single guy, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So Arvind, as the guy who's married, has two kids, all your dogs, cats, if you don't want to answer, it's cool. We can edit it out. Did you feel like when you spoke to your wife and said, "Hey, I'm going to leave Google and start this up," how did it go? Is it like, "Yeah, go for it," or like, "What are you, crazy? This
yeah,
stay. You're doing great." Like
yeah.
that had to be an interesting conversation because you with careers, I find out that if you don't have your family backing you, it gets hard. But if you have your family backing you, it's much easier. So how did that play out to make that first
Yeah.
iteration from Google to Rubric?
Yeah. Well, I mean, see, like starting a company is exciting, and I think, like, for me, my wife, like, she understands that, and
Yeah.
in Bay Area, in Silicon Valley, that's actually, that's the dream. So I think I
Yeah.
think so I had full support. Like, there's I don't really remember like even going through that discussion of that, hey, like, what are the pros and cons, like kind of a thing, like chose to do it, and we jump into it. Like, obviously, being at Google, like, I was fortunate to actually have financial independence,
Mhm.
and the ability to take the risk, so that's also sometimes important. But I'll also tell you, like, I had two young kids, but they were not they were young, but they definitely had a question, like, when I left Google, and then we started Rubric, and we had this office, which was really small, and like looked sort of, like it was
You're
like
like, "Dad, what happened
run
to you?
down.
What went
Yeah.
wrong?"
And yeah, so I took them to the office, and they said, like, why would you do this? Like, why would you leave Google, to do this? You're probably the most stupid person that I was ever. That was their reaction.
So I asked the same question that your kids were asking. So I asked children level questions here. So because what now, even your kids, what ages were they when they were saying that? Were they like really young or teens or?
Yeah, they were. My daughter was 8, and my son was 6. So they
So
sort of had, yeah,
so 8 and 6,
someone.
they're already embedded in the whole culture of technology and Silicon Valley at an early age.
I mean, yeah, like, Google had this good environment where,
Yeah.
like, we could take kids, to the office, and so they had been there, quite some number of times, and they used to love it. They used to love the food there.
I mean, so you mentioned this, like it's kind of the dream in San Francisco or Silicon Valley, the Bay Area, to be able to kind of call the shots on your own in your career. I mean, I'm just going to be very forward and candid. Like, do you feel like you've made it in your career? Like, what are your career goals now at this point in stage in your life?
Yeah. So first, like, I think I feel like, I've been, unfortunately, I mean, sorry, I've been very, very um lucky, with all the opportunities that I've gotten in the like in my career. At this point, like, the way I think about what I do next is, how can I make, some positive impact, like, uh, build products that can actually help us in our everyday lives. And and I think like starting Glean was about that. Like, when I see, like, in our work lives, there is this really big struggle that every single person who I know faces. And the ability to sort of go, and build some technology, use the technology to solve real world problems. I think that's the exciting part. So, like, it's fortunate to be in a position where you can actually, do that. um, and so that's sort of, that's my mindset at this point. Like, have, make an impact, do good things, work with great people, make them successful. That's what drives me.
And I
Right.
imagine the scalability of the SaaS product is huge, right? Because whether it's a small, mid-sized, large company, everybody has that problem of trying to gather all the data, all the information in one site to make one source to make it easier. So I'd imagine too, this has unlimited growth, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, we're working on a problem that every person in every company in the world faces. So the opportunity for Glean is huge. And in some sense, you can think of, like, when we started the company, that was our ambition. Like, we want to be the Google for people in their work lives. And so it's a big opportunity, to both solve a really large problem and also to build an iconic company.
So how large do you think this could be? Do you have any goals in mind, or is it one day at a time?
Yeah, more more like, like, I guess at a startup you plan 1 year at a time.
Mhm.
And the way, like, I think the like I always feel like, Glean is going to be as large as our ambition. That is, the market doesn't limit us in any way. AI is going to fundamentally change how people work. Our opportunity is only getting larger with, like, everything that you hear in the AI world. I mean, if you think about this, like, yes, we started with this solving one problem, which is that we're going to help find things for you. Whatever you need to do your job, whatever information you need, we're going to actually make that more easily accessible to you. But now, um, with how the AI technology has actually progressed over the last 2 years, now we're actually talking about helping you, like, two steps further, not just like help find things for you, but also, um, actually directly sort of read that information, synthesize answers for you, um, and actually do work for you as well. So a lot of work that we do today, that we're actually okay doing today, in 5 years from now, we won't be. Most of this work is going to be automated. We're going to have AI assistants that are going to do some, like, a lot of these things for us, and allow us to up level, like, our own work life. So there's a big, it's a limitless scope for us to build, a very, very large company. And but I think, like, we don't think of, like, how big it can be. Like, all, like, generally, like, from a startup perspective, you think about what do you need to do in the next 1 year, to, and, like, how do you sort of keep your edge, keep building, great technology and keep growing as a company. So, but I think uh, we do have the potential to be a really, really large company, over the years.
Now, I'm curious, like the vision that you described, or the kind of um, context that you just shared with us, it reminds me a little bit of kind of what it must have felt like when the internet just became like more popular, right? And I'm curious now, for those folks that are listening, they hear about AI, they get excited about it. Maybe they're finding it challenging to figure out what's hype and what's not. Do you have any advice for the engineers, the technologists that are listening, that want to get into AI, how they can kind of figure out, where to bet their career on, and, how to kind of figure out between that noise what's legit or not.
Yeah. So AI as a technology, it's a real deal. The advances that we've seen in these large language models, or general AI models, it's incredible. And the power, there is that power there. There is that level of intelligence, in the AI models today, which has the potential to fundamentally change how things work. And so I think as a technologist, like the first thing that my advice to everyone is that the AI technology is real. Like don't think of it as a hype or sure enough, sometimes when when new technologies come, there is that period of where um, where sort of they get overhyped and and the narrative sort of starts to run ahead of the core technology. So like what AI is capable of today, when we initially saw ChatGPT, there was this feeling that AI is going to actually be able to do everything for us now, and then you start to sort of see some of these issues. So there is there was some overestimation of the capabilities of these technologies in the short run, but we're still underestimating how AI is fundamentally going to change how we live, how we work. So I think there's people should believe in this. This is a real big technology trend, and big things are going to happen here. And so just keep learning, stay up to date, with what's how this technology is evolving, because that's another interesting thing, is that the pace of innovation in AI is like nothing that we've seen before. Like we had big trends in the past, like the internet, the smartphones, I know with iPhone and mobile. And there was these were great technologies that got built over the years. Uh, but the pace of innovation with those was actually it was much slower than what we're seeing with AI. With AI, every few months you see something that you just couldn't even comprehend before, that this was actually possible with computers. So I think that's sort of how I feel. There is amazing opportunities to use AI to solve all kinds of business problems. And as entrepreneurs, as technologists, I think that's if you have that core belief in your mind, it's going to help you sort of build great products and great companies.
I mean, as you're recruiting and growing your team, do you find that you necessarily have to have some kind of machine learning or search background to be successful at Glean, or how are you recruiting engineering folks?
We actually uh, first of all, to build a product, even at an AI company, you always we need folks with different types of experiences. Folks who actually can build really good, amazing user interfaces and product experiences, to folks who can actually, you know, build scalable infrastructure systems, and that can handle petabytes and petabytes of information, and still build you know, uh, systems, that are actually performant, work fast. And and then of course we need a lot of folks who have that mindset of actually, doing good jobs on, machine learning based systems. So it's a broad spectrum. But more importantly, I feel all the machine learning technologies, they're very easy for you to learn. So as such, when we hire, we don't need somebody to sort of have that experience beforehand. As long as you have an analytical mindset, you're going to be able to actually quickly pick up machine learning as a discipline. And
No, I'm curious because you were a distinguished engineer. Fewer than 1% of engineers at Google, achieve that rating. Over the years that you spent at the company, you obviously had to get promoted quite so many times. Was there any kind of promotion in particular that was more challenging than others? On Blind, a lot of the professionals, they often are in the middle of their career, and they kind of speak of this like plateau of not knowing what to do. They've hit senior, maybe they're trying to go for staff, maybe they're trying to debate whether they want to go on the IC versus management route. Do you have any advice for those folks there?
Well, I mean, I think the first, like, as an engineer, I would say that the best mindset, to have is where you try to innovate, you try to like just do good work, build, like, solve real problems, and like, the when you do that, like, the promotions, will follow. I feel like, it's not a great, sometimes, like, we've seen this actually happened at Google, where you start to sort of drive your actions, you know, based on, like, figuring out first, like, hey, what am I gonna need to actually get promoted? And that sort of now starts to dictate your actions. And I think it's like it's flipped in my sense, in my opinion. Like, I think you have to sort of forget about this whole promotion process and how you're gonna grow, and think about making impact, with the product that you're working on. And good companies will typically will recognize that, and you will see those promotions like happen for you. So that's one thing that I would tell people is to focus on innovation, focus on building great products. The um and then the second thing, like, in terms of, like, hey, should I move to the management track, because that's what's actually going to help me grow in levels, and get paid more, versus should I stay, on the technical track? I think there are two options. Like, I'm sort of saying from a more idealistic, mindset. The first is, you do what you like more, because, you're probably going to succeed more with with that. Like, if you try to do things, which you're not good at, or something that you don't really enjoy, then at some point you're going to give up, and it'll sort of limit you, and and plateau you in that sense. So that's the answer to, should I stay in IC, or should I actually go on a management track, is do I think what you like. Second thing is that, if you feel like, you're in a company, in a place where now you can no longer pursue your passion and do the things, that you actually like to do, but still get recognized, and, climb the ladder, then, there are plenty of companies out there, like, who are still in still, like, who will actually be a better fit for you. For example, as an engineer, if you feel like you're reaching a ceiling in Google, there's so many other great startups, which are looking for the experience you have. and and at startups, like, they value engineering a lot more, because we need to build things. We don't have that many people that you need to manage. So I think that's another path for people, like, who want to stay, as, in technology, but still like make an impact. Like, I think you go to a smaller company, you'll have that chance more.
Speaking of startups, Arvind, where there's been a lot of tech people who've been laid off from last year, from 2022, 2023, even into now. So let's say, like, people who are on the Blind, platform, and others who are maybe software engineers, product managers, what have you, and they're thinking of maybe trying the entrepreneurial route. Are there anything you would recommend to people to say, hey, within AI, maybe this is an area that could be a lot of growth? I know you have your hands filled with Glean, but any ideas for other people who feel like, hey, I really want to kind of jump on this bandwagon, because it's really going to keep growing.
Yeah.
Any suggestions for them?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think like first of all, like if you are like, if you got laid off and now you have to figure out what to do next, that's actually sometimes, that's a great thing to happen to you, because now you're forced to actually, like you're not suffering from the problem of inertia anymore. Like, you're going to do something new, something different. So it can, like, it can be a good thing for you to be in that place. Um, the like my suggestion always for people, when they're trying to think about ideas or startups, that they want to start, what I tell people is, try to like, just, see from your own experience, like what you've done in the past. You've sort of, like, you probably found a bunch of things, that have been annoying to you, like, in terms of maybe how technology works, or like, things that made your, work harder, more difficult, things, where you spend a lot of times, doing things that you didn't want to do. So if you can actually like go back and think about your own experiences from the past, and some problems actually surface to you, which now you can then start to think about that, hey, like, can I actually use AI, um, and see if I can actually, solve that problem in a way that nobody has been able to solve before. And if you follow that path, it often leads to sort of more conviction in that you will have in your own ideas, and actually help you start a company. So there's no specific, like, area that I would say, because I think AI will make impact on everything. It's going to make impact on, like all areas of technology. For example, solutions in legal space, solutions in, customer support, CRM, developer productivity. You already see like a whole bunch of startups in each one of these areas. So AI is quite broad in that sense. So, but my advice to you as a as an individual, like wanting to start a company, is to sort of go look at things that you're familiar with, problems that you've actually experienced. Because one thing that I've noticed is, with folks who want to start companies, is that they're the first ones to actually, you know, reject their own ideas before somebody else rejects ideas for them. And I think like you'll avoid that fate, like if you actually solve something, that you experience yourself, in the past.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. There's this investor, Peter Lynch, back in the day, really renowned. And his investment thesis was always find a company that you understand. So his office was next to an Oban Pan, and he would go and eat lunch there, and he would look around, and it was crowded. And then he did his homework and saw, oh my gosh, this franchise is growing leaps and bounds, and he would invest in it. So he's fine. In this instance, he was finding something that was going well, and they added to it. But what you're also saying is, on the other side, for people who are interested in maybe starting up something in AI, maybe find something in your work environment that you know is a pain and everyone is frustrated by it, to focus on that because you have the knowledge in that space, so it can make you more competitive, as opposed to maybe going to something you have no idea about. Does that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And also not just make you more competitive,
Yeah.
but it'll actually also make you have that, sort of fundamental belief in it. Like oftentimes,
Right.
like you won't do a startup because you lose faith in your own ideas.
Mhm.
So that's another part. Like, that's the other thing that it helps with.
See, that's a cool thing with Glean. And I'm not saying this just because you're here on the show, but it's probably the biggest problem and headache that people have in companies is you can't find the stupid document you need. You can't find the agreement. It's so frustrating. It's so aggravating. So yeah. So I can imagine that's a big pain point that needs to be solved. And everyone has it, every company has it. So it's finding that kind of thing.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, speaking of Glean, what are kind of like the cheat codes that we should know about in terms of what you're looking for when you're hiring and growing your team? How can folks stand out when they're interviewing, applying at Glean?
We are looking for, as I said, like, engineers with a broad skill set. Like, you could be a front-end engineer, you could be a back-end engineer, you could be an ML engineer. We welcome everyone because, we have, needs across the board. The like, when you apply, like first, like, we're fairly small, I would say. So we actually are able to, um, look at every submission, every resume that, comes to us. And so, like, in terms of like standing out in the applicants, like, you don't have to do a whole lot of work because, we still have time to actually go and, look at your resume. But what we look for, like, in people, is the like one, like, we want to actually understand from people why they want to work at Glean. This is one of the lessons I've learned is that, if you love the product that that you're working on, you're going to do a great job at it. You're going to stay, motivated. You can actually, you will be innovative. And so that's sort of one thing that we look for is, when somebody comes and like applies, on our website, and they actually talk about like their own, like, struggle with this problem, like, it sort of like, gives us that information that, yes, like, this is someone who's going to be passionate about our product. And then the other things, that we look for is, just like we look for evidence of, like, have you worked hard in your past jobs? Have you actually grown there? Have you, so standard things, I would say, like, nothing really unique about Glean. Yeah.
Got it. No, but I appreciate this kind of focus on impact because, I mean, going back to what we were discussing between kind of the IC versus management debate, I think people often take being a manager as a shortcut to demonstrate impact, right? Where you say like, oh, well, I've managed larger and larger teams, or now I've made now I've become a manager, and so my influence has necessarily gained, or I'm necessarily doing kind of like bigger and better projects. But I mean, to your point, and your career points out, you don't necessarily have to do that, right? Where if you just truly focused on the product and the problem that you're solving for the end user, for the customer, then these promotions or this career success can naturally follow. And to your point, more recently, it will definitely speak on your resume when you apply for other jobs, even.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, it's an interesting thing. Like for startups, the sometimes, that like the fact that you've managed, like, you grew and like you started managing, 50 people and then 100 and then 200, those skills are actually not useful to us. That's, in some ways, like, we don't have 200 people, that you need to manage. So it's actually like, again, like, as, when, somebody applies, like, for many startups, like, what they value is what work you did. Like, are you actually still able to actually go and write, like, lines of code and 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 sort of, be, at the ground floor, like doing, you know IC level work, but also like they have the ability to mentor and lead other people. So we sort of tend to look for people like who are not, like too high level already, um where like they will now find it hard to actually, work as an individual.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I really appreciate you coming on the show, Arvind, to kind of give us a sneak peek into kind of what's next for AI, especially with like enterprise AI applications, but also your career to date. Thanks.
Thank you so much for
Thank
having me.
you. Thanks.